Today, I'm going to show you 5 soups that you need to make this fall. I'm starting with broccoli cheddar cheese soup because it's my favorite, and quite honestly, I make these soups year-round because they are so good. Here we go. Here I'm starting with a pound of fresh broccoli florets. You could also use frozen broccoli. I'm going to be using 3 14.5 ounce cans. These are 3 cans of chicken broth. Here I have 1 cup of heavy cream. I'm going to start off by sauteing 1 small shallot, 3 cloves of garlic. I have 4 tablespoons of butter, a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. This is going to make a roux, and I will be using around 12 to 14 ounces of shredded cheese. I have a combination of sharp cheddar cheese and pepper jack cheese because I had a small portion of pepper jack to use. I didn't have enough cheese. I'm also adding a 1/2 cup, maybe a little more extra, of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. I will be adding salt, pepper, a little bit of seasonings and spices, and I'm gonna make some soup. It's just a small shallot that I finely chopped. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt. I'm gonna go in with my garlic. Now for the butter. I'm going to let that melt down. And I've lowered the heat. I don't want this too high or too hot, so I put it onto a medium heat setting on my stove here, my burner. Now I'm going in with my 1/4 cup of flour. Going in with just a little bit of onion powder. I'll say that's optional. 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Some black pepper, just a little dash. And some paprika. I'd say a 1/4 teaspoon of each. Give that a mix. Going in with my chicken broth. And just continually mix and stir as you add it in. This is combined well. I'm going to crank up the heat back to a medium to medium-high heat. I want this to sort of simmer here. Now I'm adding in my broccoli. Salt. The lid. Let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Now remember, I'm working with fresh broccoli, so it will release some more of that water content, but once the 15 minutes is up, after it starts to simmer, I may add a little more liquid to it. Okay, so this has simmered for somewhere between like 10 and 12 minutes. I didn't take it the full 15, but you know, do what you must do. And I don't think it needs any extra liquid in this. I think this is good. 1 cup of heavy cream going right in. Now go in with your cheeses. 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. Once this gently melts down and combines and just becomes creamy and smooth, I'll taste it for salt or seasoning, and I suggest you do the same and adjust it to your preference. So over a medium-low heat, I'm gonna let this gently simmer for another 10 minutes or until everything is combined and creamy. So you could puree some of the soup to make it really thick, but this is perfect. I like it just like this. And the longer it sets, the thicker it will get. And I'm serving in a sourdough loaf bread bowl to make it extra delicious. This is one of my favorites. I'm going in. So good. It wouldn't be an official soup season if I didn't make a pot of chicken caldo. This is a Mexican-style chicken soup that I love to serve with Mexican red rice. This chicken and rice is the perfect combo. I am starting with 1 split bone-in skin-on chicken breast for this recipe, and I'm making a small pot of chicken caldo. I'm going to be using around 7 cups of broth. Here I have 1 medium carrot, 1/2 of a celery stick. I also have 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, 1 dried bay leaf, and half of a medium onion chopped. And this is what I'm going to start with. In a pot, this is a 5 to 6 quart pot, I'm going to add 6 to 7 cups of chicken broth. I only have 6 cups, so I'll have to add water to make up the difference. Into the pot, I'm adding my chicken breast. I'm also adding the carrot, onion, celery, and bay leaf going in. I'm going to turn on the heat, and I'm going to offset the lid and bring that up to a rapid simmer, gentle boil. I'm also going to be adding 2 small to medium potatoes, half of a small cabbage or some chunks, and 1 zucchini. Once the chicken broth and soup is simmering like this, I'm going to turn it down and let it cook for about 35 minutes. After 35 minutes, now I'm going to add the rest of the vegetables. Here I have my potatoes and zucchini chopped. By the way, when you're doing this, be careful, because then this could happen. Now I'm going to add the cabbage on top. I'm going to add like a teaspoon of salt. Salt and seasoning is to your preference. I'm going to shake that on. I'm also going to add cracked black pepper to taste. Now I'm going to give everything a mix and just sort of combine that. And at this point, you could also add chayote. That is another ingredient I love to add to my chicken caldo. I just don't have that today. And I also love to add fresh corn on the cob, but I do that later if I had it. Okay, I'm going to add an extra cup of water to make up the 7 cups because I only had 6 cups of broth. That goes in. I'm going to offset the lid once again and let it continue cooking. Now let me show you how I make my Mexican red rice. You'll want to preheat the pan over a low to medium low heat, and I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of cooking oil. And I've pre-rinsed in cold water 1 cup of long grain rice, and I'm going to toast this until a light golden color. You want to take your time doing this, try not to burn the rice, and just keep mixing and coating the rice in the cooking oil and toasting it evenly. Here I'm going to add a little bit of sliced onion and saute that, and everything smells very aromatic. And after the onion, I am going to add like a half teaspoon to a full teaspoon of crushed or ground cumin seeds with black peppercorns. And what I did is I just took a teaspoon of the mix and I just kind of grinded it up, cracked it, grind it, I don't know, crushed it, add it to the pan. And you want to do this quickly. This is just to kind of bloom the seasoning and make it very aromatic and fragrant. Here I'm going to mix in 1 tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder and just quickly mix that. You don't want to burn this either because things are really hot in this pan. Now I'm going to add 8 ounces of tomato sauce. By the way, if you want to add fresh garlic, you want to do that right before the tomato sauce. I just forgot. At this point, you'll want to add 16 fluid ounces of low sodium chicken broth or water. I'm filling up the tomato sauce can because it's 8 ounces, so that's 1. I'm going to crank up the heat because you want to start to get this to simmer and boil a bit. And I'm going to fill up the second time. And I will add another ounce or so of water to make up 16 fluid ounces of liquid. And I'm going to shake in half a teaspoon of garlic powder and half a teaspoon of onion powder. Like I said, you could use fresh garlic in place of the powder. And when I go to mix this, if you're going to do this, you want to gently mix quickly. Don't overwork the rice. And what I'm going to do next is cover with a lid. And once it comes up to a simmer or a boil, you'll want to lower the heat and let it cook for about 15 to 18 minutes. Since I'm working with one chicken breast, I probably should have cut it into sections, but I'm going to use my sharp kitchen shears to cut the chicken into at least 3 chunks because this is going to serve 3 people. But it smells amazing. You'll want to taste for salt and seasoning and adjust to your preference. Okay, so the rice is done, but I'm not going to lift the lid. I'm going to let it hang out for about 5 to 10 minutes with the lid on before serving. And my kitchen smells amazing. This is going to be such a good dinner. So in all, the caldo took less than an hour to make, around 50 minutes or so. So I'm going to serve a bowl with a little bit of that rice first. Look at this. It just came out perfectly. And the contrast of the tomatoey Mexican red rice goes great with the chicken caldo. And there are so many variations to make chicken caldo. Some people like to add fresh tomato into the mix or tomato sauce, or maybe like a chili puree. It's really up to you, but this combo, this is my favorite. So let me know in the comment section your favorite way to make chicken caldo, or if you've made it before. By the way, this is cold and flu season, and this soup is so comforting and helps to alleviate some of those flu and cold symptoms. So you better believe if we get sick, I'm going to be making this again. But look at this. Perfect. But I am going to garnish it because, you know, thumbnail purposes. You can add cilantro or parsley. And I'm also going to add a hint of lime. And if you have a really good spicy salsa, that also goes great. Let me show you how I make lasagna soup. This is the perfect soup for cold weather and when you want lasagna, but quick. This is going to be good. Let me show you how I make it. So I'm going to be using a 12-ounce box of lasagna pasta. Here I have a pound of mild Italian sausage, a pound of lean ground beef. I'm also going to be using 2 cloves of garlic chopped and half of an onion. Here I have a jar of pasta sauce and 2 cans of beef broth. In a pot, I'm going to add my Italian sausage, and it's a cold pot because I want to render as much fat as possible without having to add any cooking oil. So just break that apart and cook it. Here I'm going to add my diced onion, and I'm just going to continue the saute. This is a great one-pot dinner, a great one-pot soup, meal, call it what you want. It's so good. Here I'm going to add the ground beef, and I'm just sort of going to add it to one side and just break that apart and start to cook that as well. Eventually I will combine it. Here I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. I'm also going to add some cracked black pepper into the mix. And now for the garlic. I'm just going to add that right on top. And at this point, you'll want to break apart the ground beef and continue cooking until everything is cooked through. And if you have your favorite Italian blend seasoning, add that. I'm using this no salt seasoning, but use what you've got. And I'm just going to add 1 or 2 teaspoons and continue the saute and cook everything through. By the way, it smells great already. Here I'm going to add some tomato paste. About 1.5 tablespoons goes in. And I'm just going to work that in and cook the tomato paste just a little bit. This will also help to create some fond on the bottom of the pot. Now I'm ready to add the beef broth. In all, I will be using around 6.5 to 7 cups of liquid. I opted for 2 cans of beef broth. I'm going to give that a mix first. And it is coming together quite nicely. And now I'm going to add my jar of pasta sauce. This is a 24-ounce jar, and that goes right in. And use the one that you prefer. This is the one I had. I'm going to fill that 24-ounce jar with water, and I'm going to give that a shake to pick up any of residual left behind sauce. and that also goes into the pot. Be sure to check the description below for the ingredient list and ratios of all the ingredients. Okay, give this a mix. And what I'm going to do next is taste it for seasoning and salt. That is important, and I suggest you do the same because we all do not have the same palates. For example, I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, and I'm also going to add some cracked black pepper to taste and an extra pinch of salt. And you'll want to give this a mix and bring this up to a boil. In the meantime, this is what I'm going to do with the lasagna sheets. You're going to break them into just pieces. Doesn't have to be perfect. I actually like doing this. There's something about just breaking pasta that is therapeutic in the kitchen. I don't know. Okay, so this is boiling, and now I'm ready to add the pasta or the broken pasta into the pot. I'm going to give that a mix. And once it starts to boil, I'm going to time it for about 9 to 10 minutes. Okay, here I've taken one 15-ounce container of ricotta cheese and 4 ounces of grated fresh mozzarella and just combine this well. I'm also going to add like a tablespoon of freshly chopped parsley or chopped fresh parsley. Give that a mix. Sometimes I add cracked black pepper and red chili flakes, but this is what I'm opting for today. And I'm going to garnish this soup with this ricotta cheese mixture and just combine very well. By the way, you also can add a handful of grated Parmesan cheese. Okay, so here I have fresh basil that's going to go into the pot, and this is almost done. So what I'm going to do is add 3/4 cup to a cup of heavy cream. I actually had whipping cream. I'm going to give this a mix, and essentially this is ready to serve. And be sure to give it a taste for salt and seasoning and adjust to your preference. So what I'm going to add now, which a lot of recipes do call for, is fresh basil. Now if you don't have fresh basil, it's still going to work, but I had fresh basil, so I'm going to hand tear these leaves into the pot, and this is ready to serve. I'm going to give this a good mix, taste it for salt and seasoning once again, and this is dinner, and this came together in no time. If you really do crave a soup and you love lasagna, I suggest you give this a try. So I'm going to serve the first bowl and I'll show you how it comes together. So currently it is the winter season and it is cold, and a lot of you might actually be in snowy, blizzardy weather. So if you are looking for a hearty soup to keep you warm, and it's so comforting, you should give this a try. I love a good pasta soup. So I'm garnishing with grated Parmesan cheese, and here I'm just going to take a little scoop and add the scoop of ricotta cheese mixture right in the center. By the way, you could add a couple of extra scoops because it's so good. Now a little fresh basil, and this is dinner. It's time to dig in. I like to add crushed red pepper flakes as a garnish, extra pepper if you like, and it's so good. If you haven't tried lasagna soup, this might be your sign to give it a try because it's so good. So let me show you another pasta soup recipe that I love. I'm going to show you how to make tortellini soup. This soup comes together so quick, it's great for a weeknight dinner. Okay, so here's another soup recipe to keep you warm. I am working with 20 ounces of tortellini. This is a 3-cheese tortellini. Use what you got. I have some Parmesan cheese. I'm going to be using 5 ounces of baby spinach, a 15-ounce jar of marinara sauce, 1 pound of lean ground beef. I'm also going to be using like a cup of heavy cream. I have 1 small onion, some garlic, beef broth, and some dry seasonings and herbs. So in a preheated pot, I'm going to add around 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. I added that because I'm working with very lean ground beef. Here I have my onion diced, and I'm going to saute well. I'm going to just saute until it becomes translucent, aromatic, and kind of softened. Now I'm going to add my ground beef. I'm going to add that right on top of the sauteed onions. And by the way, I'm working with like a medium to medium-high heat. And I'm going to break that down, break it apart. And now I'm going to add some salt, maybe like a 1/2 teaspoon to start, cracked black pepper. I'm also going to add some crushed red pepper flakes, maybe like a 1/2 teaspoon. Here I'm working with 2 teaspoons of dried Italian seasoning blend. Next I'm going to go with some garlic powder. I'm also adding some onion powder, maybe like a 1/2 teaspoon to a full teaspoon. It's up to you. and my fresh minced garlic. Now I'm just going to combine well, break down the ground beef, and saute. Here I'm working with 15-ounce jar of marinara sauce. Use the store-bought brand you prefer, and 2 cups of water into the jar. Give it a shake, and I'm going to add that. In all, in this recipe, I'm working with 6 cups of liquid, whether you want to do beef broth, all beef broth, or mix it with water. So combine this, and now I'm going to add my beef broth, and that's like 4 cups going in. By the way, this is a low sodium beef broth, so I will have to adjust the salt later, and I suggest you do the same. Salt and seasoning is to your preference and taste. Okay, so I am going to give it a taste, and I suggest you do the same, and I'm going to add a pinch more of salt and some cracked black pepper. By the way, you could also sub the ground beef with maybe Italian sausage. That works. So combine everything, give it a mix, and you'll want to bring your pot of liquid up to a rapid simmer or a boil, like a gentle boil. And now I'm going to add all of my tortellini. The package instruction says it takes about 5 to 6 minutes to cook. And if you're working with frozen tortellini, by the way, it will take a longer time to bring up to a boil because it'll drop the temp of the pot. So I'm working with thawed, fresh tortellini. So this is boiling. I'm going to let it cook for 3 minutes. And now I'm going to add all of my baby spinach. And I'm just going to, I should have just dumped it right into the pot, but I'll work with like big handfuls, and then I'm just going to put that in the pot, give it a mix, and then just keep adding. And if you don't have baby spinach, you could, or fresh baby spinach, you could use frozen. Just make sure you thaw and drain it. Or if you have fresh kale, chop that up. That also works. And if you don't have either, then, leave it out. Just add some fresh parsley when you garnish. It really is versatile. So after 5 minutes, cutting off the heat, and now I'm going to serve a bowl. Now, there's 2 ways you can serve this. You noticed I didn't add my heavy cream. You can just garnish with heavy cream and let people add as much as they want, because the soup is good just like this. But to make it creamy, like I said, I'm just going to drizzle a couple of tablespoons into a bowl, maybe 1 or 2. It just depends on the person. I'm carefully doing this, by the way. And now garnish with some Parmesan cheese. This is grated, and some chopped fresh parsley. I like to also shake in some crushed red pepper flakes. And this is ready to serve. Give it a mix, and it's so good. Okay, so this smells and looks amazing, but here's the other way you can do this. Just take your heavy cream, a cup of heavy cream, and add it right into the pot. Give it a good mix, and it's done. And garnish each bowl. Serve it with crusty French bread on the side. It's so good and hearty. Today I felt like a one-pot soup, so I'm going to show you how I make my homemade version of pasta fagioli. This is not authentic or traditional, but it's good. In a 6-quart pot, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, and I'm going to saute half of a medium onion, 1 celery stick, and 1 medium carrot that I chopped. By the way, I'm doing this kind of backwards. I'm going to add a pinch of salt, but I'll show you what I mean. I meant to actually cook 5 slices of bacon that I chopped. So as I'm sauteing this, I realized, oh, that's right, I was supposed to cook bacon first. So if you are making this recipe, cook the bacon first. And in the rendered fat, you can saute the celery, onion, and carrot. Okay, so now I'm adding the bacon, and I'm going to cook and render some of the fat. If you want to skip the bacon, then just add the olive oil and saute the aromatics with a pinch of salt. That also works. Okay, so like I stated earlier, this is not traditional or authentic, but this is just something that I love to make. Going in with 1 pound of lean ground beef. This is a 90 to 10 meat to fat ratio ground beef. If you are working with anything higher in fat, you might want to drain some of the fat. Okay, and I'm going to add 2 cloves of garlic that I chopped. Here I have a combination. It's 1 tablespoon of dried Italian herb blend, a 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme, and a 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. And I'm going to add like a 1/2 teaspoon or so of salt. You can always add salt later to taste, so just maybe start with a 1/2 teaspoon. Now I'm going to break that apart and continue cooking and browning the meat. Here I'm going to add a half teaspoon of cracked black pepper. Give that a mix, and as you can see, everything has cooked through. It's nicely browned. There is flavor and fond at the bottom of the pan, so that is great. Now I'm going to add a 15-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. You could also use like maybe 4 to 5 fresh Roma tomatoes diced. That also works. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a mix, combine everything, and kind of cook the crushed tomatoes quickly. Now I'm going to add 4 cups of chicken broth. You could use veggie or chicken stock if you like. And I'm also going to add 1 or 2 extra cups of liquid. I have water, so that's what I'm going to add. In all, somewhere between 5 to 6 cups of broth or water works for this. Okay, so after giving that a mix, I'm going to add 2 15-ounce cans of drained beans. I'm working with white kidney bean and a small red bean going in. Here I'm going to add 1 dried bay leaf, and I'm just going to put that in, give that a mix. And what I'm going to do now is cover with a lid and let it simmer for about 10 to 12 minutes. For this recipe, I am using 6 ounces of Tortellini pasta, and it's just this like short tubular pasta. Okay, so this has been simmering for about 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is just give that a mix, and it smells so good. By the way, if you can't find Tortellini pasta, you could use like a small elbow macaroni. Okay, you'll want to season and salt to taste, so that's what I'm doing. And now I'm going to add the pasta. And you'll want to add the pasta with everything boiling or rapid simmer. So give that a mix, and I'm going to let it cook for another 10 minutes. So this is cooked for 10 minutes, and once the pasta is cooked, it's ready. Look at this. It is so easy to make and so good. And if you want it extra brothy, you could add more broth into the mix, or you can add less if you want it thicker. Okay, adding fresh parsley on top, and this is ready. This is dinner, and I'm going to show you how I serve the bowl. So I add a couple ladlefuls of everything into the bowl. Now let me show you how I garnish. So I like to add a little bit of olive oil. Here I'm adding cracked black pepper, some grated Parmesan cheese going on top. I'm also going to add some fresh parsley. I love to add crushed red pepper flakes, and this is dinner. It's so good. Serve it with a side salad or crusty bread, and you've got a delicious, hearty, easy dinner. It's so good and comforting. And be sure to comment down below some of your favorite soups to make during the fall soup season. So I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.